Hey everyone, I'm Sarah and I grew up Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Before we get into today's topic, I need to tell you something that happened to my childhood friend Rebecca that completely changed how I saw my community. She disappeared for 8 months when we were 17, and when she came back, nobody was allowed to talk about where she'd been or what happened. That silence, that secret, is exactly what we need to talk about today. What happens when an Amish girl gets pregnant before marriage? And I'm not talking about what you might imagine or what you've seen in movies. I'm talking about the real, raw truth that nobody outside our community gets to see. So if you've ever wondered what really goes on behind those plain dresses and quiet farms, stay with me because what I'm about to share might shock you. Growing up, we were taught that our bodies were sacred vessels, right? Purity wasn't just important, it was everything. From the time I was 12 years old, I understood that my virginity was tied to my worth as a future wife, as a member of the church, as a person. We didn't have sex education like you did. We learned about reproduction from watching animals on the farm, and the message was crystal clear. You wait until marriage, or you face the consequences. But here's the thing, nobody tells you about Amish communities. We're human. Teenagers are still teenagers, even when they're wearing prayer caps and driving buggies. During Rumspringa, which is that period starting around 16 when Amish youth get more freedom, things happen. Kids sneak out at night. There are barn parties, there's alcohol, sometimes drugs, and yes, there are relationships. The difference is we had zero access to birth control, no real understanding of safe practices, and absolutely no one to talk to about any of it. I remember being 15 and overhearing the women in my community whispering about a girl from a neighboring district. They said she'd been sent away to live with relatives in another state. At the time, I didn't understand what that meant, but as I got older, I started connecting the dots. That phrase, sent away to live with relatives, it came up more often than you'd think. So let me break down what actually happens because there isn't just one path. The outcome depends on so many factors, your family's standing in the community, how strict your particular district is, whether the father is Amish or an outsider, and honestly, sometimes it just comes down to luck. The first scenario, and this is what the community hopes for, is a quick wedding. If the girl and boy are both Amish, both baptized or close to it, and their families approve, the church will rush a marriage. I've seen weddings planned in less than 2 weeks when usually they take months to organize. Everyone knows why it's happening so fast, but nobody says it out loud. The couple gets married, the baby comes a little early according to the official story, and life goes on. The shame is there, whispered about for years, but it's manageable. But what if the father isn't Amish? What if he's an English boy she met during Rumspringa? This is where things get complicated fast. The pressure on that girl to either bring him into the community or cut him off completely is enormous. I knew a girl named Emma whose boyfriend actually tried to convert. He grew a beard, started learning Pennsylvania Dutch, worked on her father's farm, but after 3 months he couldn't handle it and left. Emma had to face everything alone. Now here's the option that haunts me the most, the one that happened to my friend Rebecca. Some families, especially those who are deeply concerned about their reputation, will send the pregnant girl away. Sometimes it's framed as helping a sick aunt in another state. Sometimes they don't even bother with an excuse. The girl just vanishes from the community for months. Rebecca left in January. I remember because it was right after the new year and she missed my 16th birthday in February, which she'd never done before. Nobody would tell me where she was. My mother said I should pray for her and not ask questions. When Rebecca came back in September, she looked different, thinner, older somehow. Her eyes had this emptiness that scared me. Years later, after I'd left the Amish, I found Rebecca on social media. We met for coffee, and she finally told me everything. Her parents had sent her to a home for unwed mothers in Ohio, run by Mennonites. She lived there throughout her pregnancy, had the baby, a little girl, and was required to give her up for adoption to an Amish couple who couldn't have children. She held her daughter once for maybe 10 minutes and then never saw her again. Rebecca told me she doesn't even know her daughter's name. The adoption was closed completely. She said the hardest part wasn't the physical pain of childbirth or even the grief of giving up her baby. It was coming back to the community and pretending nothing had happened. Everyone knew, but everyone acted like she'd just been on an extended visit. She was expected to move on, find a husband, have more children, and never speak about that little girl again. But not every family sends girls away. Some families, particularly if they're more progressive or if the girl hasn't been baptized yet, might quietly support her in keeping the baby. But here's the catch. She'll likely never get married within the community. An Amish man willing to marry a woman with a child from another relationship is extremely rare. So she becomes dependent on her parents, lives in their house, works on the farm, and raises her child in a kind of limbo. The child grows up knowing they're different, that their mother made a mistake, even if nobody says it directly. And then there's the option nobody wants to talk about, but that absolutely happens. Some girls find ways to end their pregnancies. I'm not going to go into detail about methods, but understand that when you have no access to medical care, no money of your own, and no knowledge about safe procedures, desperate girls make dangerous choices. I knew of 2 girls who ended up in English hospitals with serious complications. Their families told the church they'd had medical emergencies. The truth was buried along with their shame. The emotional and psychological impact of all of this is something I still struggle with, and I left years ago. Imagine carrying this secret, this trauma, with no therapist to talk to, no support groups, no online forums where you can anonymously share your story. You're just expected to pray harder, work harder, and get over it. The really messed up part? The boys often face minimal consequences. Sure, there might be a talking to from the church elders, maybe some public confession if he's baptized, but his life continues mostly unchanged. He can still find a wife. He can still have a normal place in the community. The girl carries the physical evidence, the social stigma, and the emotional scars, often for the rest of her life. After I left the Amish community, I went through years of therapy trying to unpack all of this. The purity culture, the shame, the silence around women's bodies and sexuality. My therapist helped me understand that the system is designed to control women through fear and reputation. Your worth is tied so completely to your purity and your obedience that one mistake can define your entire existence. I think about Rebecca's daughter sometimes. She'd be about 12 now, growing up Amish with parents who love her, completely unaware that her birth mother lives just a few districts away, probably still grieving. I think about Emma, who eventually left the community like I did and hasn't spoken to her family in over a decade. I think about all the girls whose stories I'll never know because they're still living in that silence. The Amish community will tell you they're protecting traditional values, that their way of life is pure and godly. And sure, there are beautiful aspects to Amish culture, the simplicity, the strong community bonds, the connection to the land. But this, the way pregnant unmarried girls are treated, this isn't about morality or faith. It's about control and the preservation of a patriarchal system that values reputation over compassion. If you're watching this and you grew up in a strict religious community, Amish or otherwise, and you've experienced something like this, I want you to know you're not alone. The shame they made you feel wasn't about protecting you or keeping you pure. It was about maintaining power. Your worth isn't determined by one decision you made as a teenager. You deserved support, not exile. You deserved information, not ignorance. You deserved compassion, not judgment. And if you're just curious about Amish life, I hope this gave you a glimpse behind the curtain. These communities aren't the simple, innocent places they appear to be from the outside. There's complexity, there's pain, and there are real people struggling with impossible situations, all while maintaining the appearance of perfect obedience. Before I go, I want to say that making this video was hard. I'm sharing stories that some people would prefer stayed buried. But silence protects systems, not people. If my speaking up helps even one person feel less alone, it's worth it. Thanks for watching, and if you want to hear more about my experience leaving the Amish community and building a new life, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.